Good afternoon, everyone. I now call the meeting of the Finance Committee of the Frederick County School Board to order. Today is February 6th. The time is 4:33 p.m. We have an agenda before us. How would the committee like to proceed?
Madam Chair, I'd like to proceed with the agenda before us.
Second.
All right, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Dr. Hummer, I understand it's to you.
All right, Madam Chair, thank you so much. We are going to go ahead and dive into the next segment of our budget proposal. As you know, we're breaking this down for you, answering any questions that you might have. So we're first going to go over the questions that you had last time. We were able to look into that, and thanks to Mrs. Anderson and her team for looking into that. And then we're going to dive into the next section of the budget. We're going to talk about the additional staffing and the staffing standards, as well as NREP, and we do have our staff here. They'll answer any questions that you have, as well as present the program over at NREP, so thanks to them and their leadership. We're also going to talk through our instructional department requests, so Mrs. Knight will dive into that, answer any questions. And then we also have operations. So we have three of our amazing leaders of our operational side of the house, Mr. Shepard, Mr. Conlin, and Mr. Grant, who are going to answer any questions about transportation, safety, and technology in regards to those additional requests. We also have Mrs. Curry here as well to talk through any of the school nutrition questions. And then we also have Mrs. Frakely who's going to talk to us about the human capital management request as well. So we have all those pieces. And then we are going to dive into an additional layer of the pay survey. If you recall, we did this back in October, and we did a survey in regards to which staff wanted the once a month, twice a month, or not a preference. We were able to dive into breaking that down by staff, and then we have a response to that, and we'll dive into questions that you guys might have. So with that, Madam Chair, I'll hand it over to Mrs. Anderson. Thank you.
All right, so we'll jump right into the questions and answers. The first question, how much of the school nutrition transfer is for unpaid student breakfast? So you can see approximately $13,000. And secondly, this is a response to Mr. Atkins' question or suggestion at our last Finance Committee. Revise the teacher salary scale proposal to break the year of experience cluster at years 3 through 6 opposed to 13 and 16. What does that proposal cost? So we're going to show you two different options that you can see that will be a range of either adding $2.6 million to the proposal or $0.8 million. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And I realize this is a lot of information on one slide, so I'm going to try to be as succinct and clear as possible. So the first version that you see there, which is scenario A to the left, that is an example of the teacher salary scale under the superintendent's proposal that meets our salary goals of a $54,000 competitive start. See the green, it would recommend to break a year experience cluster there at next year 16. And then the blue shows that we're giving that $5,000 pay supplement at year 24. It's currently given at year 25. So if you look at options D and E, so D would be a $2.6 million addition to the proposal. You can see in the green that it breaks years 3 and 4. It breaks it earlier in the scale opposed to 16. As well, it still maintains that $54,000 start, as well as $5,000 at year experience 24. Go to scenario E. Rather than breaking it at 2 years, it just takes that cluster from 3 years to 6-year experience and breaks it in half. So on one step, you have years 3 and 4, the next step, years 5 and 6. And it still meets the goal of a competitive start, as well as the $5,000 pay supplement at year 24. That proposal would be $0.8 million additional to the proposal. So I'm going to pause here.
I love this breakdown. Thank you for this. Again, this is literally a numbers game, not these numbers particularly, but it's a supply and demand issue. We need teachers. There's not enough supply. There's a tremendous demand in our county as well as neighboring counties. We're a business. We have to staff our business. We need to encourage teachers to come here. We need to incentivize the pay scales. So the 2.6 seems a bit much for us this year. However, the 0.8 is something I think we should really look very closely at. I kind of strike it to the analogy. I know I've heard some constituents say, well, teachers should teach for the love of teaching. They love teaching. They should teach for the love of teaching no matter what the salary is. I love flying airplanes for a living. There's not a day that goes by where I don't go to work with a smile on my face to fly an airplane. For 18 years, best job, in my opinion, for me in the world. However, I will not do it for free. So nor should our teachers. So thank you for putting this together.
Certainly.
Yeah, so as I look at this, one of the things we talk about every year is the cost of living, right? So a new teacher coming out of college, he or she wants to get into a home, an apartment. We've seen the breakdowns in the past of, they live on $8 a month to do anything else. I think that incentivizing it at the lower, or adjusting it to the lower end would help ease that a little bit. And to Ms. Klein's point, our teachers do deserve to be paid. It feels like we're picking and choosing between where it helps coming regardless. But I think, the folks on scenario A are kind of established by now, right? The folks down here on scenario E, let's help them get a leg up so that they can actually put roots into the community, and incentivize them to stay. If I was going to vote right now, I would go with E. I know it's 0.8 mil over, but we do lose a lot of teachers in that area too. And one of the reasons that we're losing them to Loudoun County or wherever is because of that cost of living, and it's not cheap to live out here. Yeah, I was actually looking at Zillow today. Everything's $300,000 and above. I mean, that's roughly $2,000 to $2,200 a month for a mortgage. I would imagine that rent would be about the same. So even at that scale, it's still going to be tough. So let's give them a little bit of break while we can.
At risk of just being the only the only nuanced dissenter, I agree with both of you that yes, it would be nice to, but I also notice when I look at this that it's one at the expense of the other. So breaking 5 and 6 means not breaking what was broken in scenario A. So the folks that are hitting their stride, especially in terms of effectiveness and efficacy in the classroom, we're going to potentially leave them blocked for 4 years. 4 years without a substantive pay raise other than COLA.
Dr. Erskine, and a step. They still get a step, but not as much as if they were delineated. I just want to make sure that's clear, yeah.
So I think Miles is right in terms of it's a numbers game, and one costs one costs the other, different groups of people. But based on those slides that we saw, I think it was 2 weeks ago about what year of experience where we start to lose people. That's where that original idea came from. Mm-hmm. So I'd be interested to talk with my fellow board members more about this.
Let me ask you a question, though, on that, since we're just kicking this around right now. If you wouldn't have seen scenario A, if it wasn't presented, and you would have just saw numbers with no highlighters on it, where would you have landed before?
I think I would still kind of do a double take at those 4 years blocked together in the same row, but I don't think it would have been as extraordinary.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know that the eventual goal is to break up all of these clusters, and it's just not financially feasible to do that all in 1 year. So I do respect that there's limits to that.
Madam Chair, we are close. As you can see, we're continuously getting there. And then once we fix that, it'll help with later years. So.
All right. So we'll move on to the next part of the presentation.
Thank you all for that, too.
Yep. No, thank you. So tonight, as Dr. Hummer said, we're going to continue our focus on the operating fund, but look at the budget goals related to instructional initiatives, as well as taking care of the operational side of the house. So we'll start off with the instructional initiatives. which takes us to our staffing standards. As you know, this is how we go about staffing our buildings. It's a formula-based tool that we use to make sure that we are doing all of these things here on this slide, meeting the needs of our students, aligning to our strategic goals, improving transparency in the budgeting process, and ensuring that we're allocating our resources effectively.
Madam Chair, if I may, can you go back to that last slide?
The teacher scale?
Nope, next one up. No, the one where you had the
sorry.
little blue circles in a row.
Sorry, wrong way.
Yeah. The first circle, meet the needs of the students. Have you defined what the needs of the students are?
Yes, sir. So the needs of the students are broken down by grade level. They're also broken down by specific needs such as these right here: special education, English language learners, gifted, STEM, providing opportunities through CTE, and those classes are all defined by SOQs at the state level as well as the staffing standards that we have defined.
So you're not including, you're just including educational needs, not the overall big picture needs of a student. Is that correct?
I feel like that's a trick question, Mr. Bell. But we are including all the needs of all the kids. I don't know if there's a more
I'm not trying to be tricky. I'm just
okay,
curious.
okay. Yes, it includes all the needs of all of our students.
Okay.
But in order for us to get to a staffing standard, so we're staffing our schools by being fiscally responsible and transparent with how we add positions
Sure.
on, it's based on the population of students in those buildings as well as a breakdown of each of those areas of need. So for example, we're not going to look at CTE positions at the elementary level,
No.
but you'll see them at middle and high. But across the board, we have students with disabilities across the board, so those are factored in as well.
Thank you.
Of course, yes, sir.
Can I just ask one more? Madam Chair, so at the risk of hitting a political hot button, I'll try to keep this super general. A lot of the ELL staffing requirements and compliance come from the federal government. I may have seen something in the news, perhaps, in the past week about some minor changes happening at the Department of Education. And I'm wondering how, if at all, this conversation changes if and when those unfunded mandates from the federal government go away.
So I'm reading you loud and clear. So there's actually some money that we get through title dollars to support our English language learners, as well as other students as well. And that's about 3% of our budget, roughly. We get about $12 million for that, and that fluctuates based on grants, based on different things that come out. But we also receive a large chunk of money from the state to support this population as well. Also, too, and Mrs. Anderson can definitely chime in on this, how some of our budgetary aspects work is it's always a year behind. So a lot of the grants and information and money that we're receiving has already been approved for next year. But also, too, when that came out, there was also before it was rescinded, because I know what you're referencing, it also said that it wasn't going to impact the many different aspects of school division. So it was very specific about SNAP. I know there's a lot of concerns about those dollars going away, because there are federal dollars that we receive from that, as well as title dollars to support students, English language learners, students with disabilities. But if it got to that point where they said of that 12 million, you okay, Mr. Atkins? I'm good. We would have to have that conversation about those additional supplements to support these students and how much we wanted to build into that budget. So we're not there just yet based on that information that we've had, but if so, we would have to talk through what that looks like and how to make those shifts and those changes. So I appreciate you mentioning that.
And just for clarity, looking at past budgets, and Ms. Anderson, you probably help me out with this. Federal dollars are about 6% of what we get. Most everything's from the locality or the Commonwealth.
It's,
3%?
in a
I
normal
wanna
year,
be
it's
generous.
3%, yes.
I didn't want to miss.
Yeah.
Too bad.
You were coughing when I said that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
To the tune of about 11.4 million, is that it?
Yeah. All right. So based upon our staffing standards, and this being our second year to implement this, because we know that we're not going to be able to implement all these changes in 1 year, the budget proposal includes a net of 40 additional positions for next year at just over $3.1 million request. So you can see on this table here the positions listed the FTE request, but then you see a column for FTE reallocation. What that means is we've gone into our current budget of positions and making recommendations to repurpose some of those positions based upon the results of our staffing standards. So we're asking for general education and STEM teachers. The general education covers the elementary, middle, and the high school level. Again, back to class size based on projected student enrollment growth, as well as continuing to implement our special education leads. If you recall, we added 10 positions earlier in the year to equip each high school and middle school and some of our elementary schools with special education leads. This proposal would allow us to add more at the elementary level. The ELL teachers here, we have 8 additional positions for compliance, and it says compliance because that's a staffing ratio that the state recently approved. It changed the staffing ratio to look at the proficiency of our students. So we did get increased state dollars to help implement these additional positions. Instructional coaches, we're requesting 6 there to equip the middle and the high schools, and we're proposing to take some of our intervention resource teachers at the middle school level to repurpose them to make the instructional coaches. A math specialist at the middle school level, and again, to repurpose an IRT position or an intervention resource teacher position. Student support specialist, we're asking for 2. That will continue the build out of having 1 at every high school, 1 at every middle school, and then the elementary schools sharing. So a 0.5 FTE at each of our elementaries is the goal. A parent liaison, this will allow us to staff each high school with a parent liaison. The school nurse is for Dow J. Howard. And the school security officers would equip each high school with an additional school security officer. And the custodians, this was a recent staffing ratio change. The staffing standards used to have a ratio of 1 custodian based upon a number of students. We changed that to square footage. So this proposal recommends an additional custodian for each high school, as well as our 2 elementary schools that are being expanded.
Ms. Anderson, if I can, just to put a little more color to some of these positions. So starting with the instructional coaches, one of the questions I had was, what exactly is the purpose of an instructional coach? So an instructional coach is a teacher who specializes in coaching other teachers. So as you can see, we have 3. We currently have 1 instructional coach at Frederick County Middle School because we identified that school is underperforming. The other 3 we're placing at our other middle schools that we currently have in preparation for the new standards that are coming out this fall from the state. So right now, all of our middle schools are off track, is what the term is off track. So we're trying to get them back on track. This is a proactive approach to doing so. Did I encapsulate that correctly?
That is
Okay.
absolutely correct. No, we are absolutely excited about the possibility of introducing instructional coaches across the secondary schools because it does help to develop capacity. As you know, our teachers have more standards than they can likely cover, given the time, and having an instructional coach there on site to not only help to build capacity, but it allows them to embed supports in the classroom so they can sometimes even have co-teaching. And so 2 heads can often be, when strategically done, better than 1. So it really enhances our opportunity to improve instruction for the short term and the long term at an accelerated rate.
Excellent. Much better said than I could have done. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Knight. Also, to the parent liaison, so that is specific to our English language learner population.
Yeah.
Those parent liaisons help communicate with the parents of those students and helps enrich their learning experience. The school nurse, I think, was Dow J, which you mentioned. Okay, excellent. And then I want to really hone in on the school security officers. You'll see 3 listed for all 3 of our high schools. So that is in response to some concerns that we received from administration regarding the events that have happened in our high schools. So we're bolstering our security presence in those schools.
That's correct.
If I could, just on the parent liaison one, I got a big education on this when I shared an office with probably the best one in the business. She was the hardest working person I think I've ever worked directly with. The amount that we ask these parent liaisons to do in a single school day is staggering. From interpreting for teachers, administrators, counselors, greeting unexpected visitors at the door as an interpreter, sitting in IEP meetings for hours upon hours. It's a very demanding role, but it's also making everybody else's job easier in the building, and I'm very thankful that you're adding another one.
And if I can also add to that, thank you, Dr. Erskine, for mentioning that, because ideally, our schools, especially with our populations growing, our L's population growing, our original vision for this was that additional parent liaison would allow us to staff each of our high schools with one. So I don't want to lock us into that vision because some things may change. We are looking at redistributing those parent liaisons because of what you just talked about. The volume of their workload is intense. So with us having a limited number and our pace in which we are growing in terms of L's requires that we re-envision how that role will be distributed. So we might be looking at feeder patterns instead of just a single high school, which would still, if I remember the numbers correctly, if we look at a feeder pattern, they would still have almost about 350 to 1 in terms of the number of parents they may have to come in contact with, which is significant because their work doesn't end at 4:30. Many of them I bumped into at our evening events. They are there supporting our children, helping to facilitate conversations for families. So in an ideal world, we'd certainly have the opportunity to continue to grow that position, but this will help get us at least one step closer in the way I see it, 1% better each year. So, yeah.
It's also my understanding our English language population students is 14%
That is
of our
right.
14,500 students. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And on the parent liaison thing, the position there, it took me a minute to figure out what it was because I used to get a lot of emails. Why do I have this parent liaison coming up to talk to us? I want to talk to the principal. I want to talk to the teacher. I want to talk to this person and that person. And I understand that our staff has a lot to do. And by no means is our staff not accessible to a parent because we have this parent liaison. I want to make that clear to all the parents out there that's watching this. They are still accessible. It's not just, a hurdle in the way or anything like that.
That's right.
And I think that when you put the name out there, parent liaison, it kind of gets misconstrued as that because that's what I started hearing. So that's how I felt about it until I actually learned about it.
Well,
So-
think about it as a division partner.
Right.
With our parents, because our teachers, given the volume of work that they're doing all day long, being able to reach out to some of those families and have some of those early conversations, especially those who are just transitioning to our district. So they help with some of that welcome center type of contact. Also, I'm thinking about in terms of how they interact with our families. Their role is so critical in helping, again, partner with us. Our SISP teams, which will soon be called student support teams, they help with attendance, behavior, and performance because they are able to reach families that we can't routinely communicate with because of the language barrier. So some of our students who do not show up for school and who are, unfortunately, their families are not fully aware, these folks help us to intervene and reach those families and say, we need your partnership. So really vital role for a division with numbers like this. Yeah.
And I'm glad you said that because I forgot in that big litany of stuff that I listed, I forgot to include home visits, court liaison,
Got it.
truancy, et cetera, et cetera. It's a lot.
Indeed.
Madam Chair, I do have a piece of information. I know this was asked earlier. So of our special education leads, the 10 that we added on, we actually have no vacancies right now. They were all filled.
Great.
And they are going very well. And this will get us closer to getting to 1 per school because we added 10. So we had 3 that we added to the elementary school. This will get 4 more for the elementary school with only needing, if I math correctly, 5 more. So we'll eventually get to those. And how we're doing the next phase of those is the ones with the highest population.
Got it. Great.
All right. If there are no other questions on the positions, we'll move to the next part of the presentation where I would like to invite Mrs. Reeves, Program Administrator of NREP, to the podium.
Madam Chair, Dr. Hummer, and committee members, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm here to provide information about our meeting that we had with the budgetary implications for NREP and how that affects the localities, Frederick County being the fiscal agent. I did a presentation last year, kind of giving an overview of who we are, but we are a regional program, and we serve Frederick County Public Schools, Winchester City Public Schools, as well as Clark County Public Schools, Frederick County being that fiscal agent. We are governed by the Board of Superintendents, and that would be the 3 superintendents of the localities. Dr. Hummer is the chair as the fiscal agent, being Frederick County Public Schools. We provide services for K-12, autism. We have an ED program, as well as a multiple disabilities program. We also house the early childhood program that is changing this year and will have budgetary implications for each locality. I wanted to give, this is information I had not provided last year when I did a presentation to the board, but we do have a state reimbursement model. And this is how we get monies back to the localities for serving students with intensive needs. And it's called CISNA. And it is a model where there are certain criteria in order for us to get those monies. But each year, by September 30, we look at the students that fit the criteria for CISNA, and we do a cost analysis, and we provide those to the localities who then provide that to the state. Last year, for Frederick County Public Schools, we were able to recoup $627,785 in reimbursement monies for the students we serve for Frederick County Public Schools, the average being between $20,000 and $30,000 per student that we were able to recoup. And if you look at the numbers, Frederick County Public Schools had 29 students for enrollment. 17 met the criteria for reimbursement. Some of that could be that we were transitioning students back to their home schools. So if they fall below an 85% time spending with us, they will not get reimbursement. Or they might have an eligibility category like other health impairment that doesn't fit the criteria for the CISNA reimbursement, but then the localities can ask for average daily membership, and they can recoup some of those monies in that way. So we do, as you see, also have that 145 students that we currently have in our early childhood program. That we ended with 162, so we are on track to probably surpass that in our early childhood program. And for the last couple years, we have really looked at making sure that those students are getting other opportunities, and we revamped our early childhood program and are offering 22 sections within our school right now. Next year, Winchester, they've already taken it to their board for approval, will be pulling out their students in early childhood. That is what is impacting our budget. And so we really have worked very diligently to look at needs versus wants in the regional program as those numbers go down. And it did have a tremendous impact. We met with the 3 superintendents. I met with Kristen Anderson, and we looked at what we needed to do to ensure that we were being fiscally responsible. So I will turn this next part over to Kristen.
I just wanted to add to something that Dr. Reeves said. She was talking about the CISNA reimbursement that we receive through the state. That does run through the local composite index, so we get the state share through the LCI on that amount.
Okay.
Okay. So back to what Dr. Reeves was saying, because enrollment is changing in the program, meaning that more of our students compared to Clark and Winchester are being served in the program, our share of the program is increasing just over $700,000 for next year. So that increase is due to enrollment shift, as well as because we are fiscal agent of NREP, those employees are paid from our pay scales, so they would be part of our salary initiative. And if you recall, when the last time we met, we went through the components of the compensation initiative, and that included a pay supplement for our Learning Center special education teachers of $3,000, as well as those instructional assistants of thousands. So those employees would also, if that compensation initiative is funded, would receive that pay supplement.
And just to reiterate, because I had this question in our pre-brief before this meeting here. So this shows our increase, FCPS's, Frederick County's increase.
Correct.
Clark County is also seeing an increase,
And Winchester is seeing.
and Winchester is as well. Okay.
Yes. For the school age component, yes. So while this is a $722,000 increase, as Dr. Reeves was saying, the program, because enrollment changes, the program will be reduced by 15 full-time equivalent positions, both instructional and support. So some of those positions will be reduced through vacancies. Some of them are vacant. Some we will get through employee attrition, and some we will get through reassignments into other positions that we have with Frederick County Schools. Thank you, Dr. Reeves.
Thank you.
So if there are no questions, I'll pause for a minute.
Yeah, real quick. So we're increasing the population of students at NREP.
Relative to the other localities. Yes.
All right, but we're decreasing the amount of staff.
So maybe this will help. The way that NREP is funded, it's based on a 3-year rolling average of each locality's enrollment in the program.
Right.
So the cost of the program are shared by the 3 localities
Right.
based upon those enrollments. So when Winchester's enrollment goes down, relative to the whole,
Right.
we're a
Ours
greater
goes up.
percentage of the program. So that shifts more the cost to Frederick County.
Okay, so while it may be, while that percentage may go up, is the student population going up?
Total student population is not.
Okay, is it going down? Just the early childhood? And is that why we're losing staff from there then?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, I'm tracking now.
And the early childhood participants are the Winchester City portion of those early childhood participants and they're
That's
just being
correct.
Okay.
absorbed back into WPS.
That's correct.
Got it. Yep.
Easy enough, got it now.
All right. So now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Mrs. Knight
you.
to walk you through the instructional department requests.
All right, well, thank you so much, Kristen. And of course, good evening again, board. I'm excited and delighted to have the opportunity to bring before you some major initiatives for the curriculum department and on our quest to enhance and improve academic outcomes for our students. So the first ask and the largest one is for an investment in a data management system. We aim to become a data-driven division, and having a robust data management system is critical to that because we currently do not have it. And our administrators, our teachers, and centrally, most are reliant upon their ability to really cobble together spreadsheets, as we've defined in some cases as dashboards. And self-made spreadsheets are really not dashboards. And so many of our staff are spending an inordinate amount of time having to pull together all of these data pieces. And the data requests that they're making centrally take extra time from the central office, who's supposed to be responsible for division-wide reporting, in order to make those data requests happen for our schools. And that additional capacity, when we don't have it, creates a backlog. So our data processing is really inefficient. The data management system would certainly allow us to have ready access to real-time data, which is really exciting to us all. But the other component of the data management systems that we are entertaining would not just be access to performance data. It would be a critical tool to help our student support specialists who are currently deployed to schools provide early intervention by including an at-risk screener. So we get to determine really early on, kind of through an early warning system, so to speak, which of our students are at risk. So we would be always monitoring out what we consider our ABPs, our attendance, our behavior, and our performance. When student support specialists have access to this information and are not using and relying on Google Docs and spreadsheets where people can get in there and key in errors, they can actually intervene at a faster rate. So we will be looking for a tool that will allow us to do that as well. So that's the data management system piece. Any questions about that before I talk through the next one?
Actually, just a comment about this. So, common cliche is what is measured is treasured.
That's right.
So we have to measure this data. And just anecdotally from some private school parents that I'm friends with, one of the biggest gripes, if you will, that they have with private schools is that they don't have data proving that their tuition dollars are producing results.
Sure.
So this gives us a competitive edge against private schools in the area. Not only does it give us a competitive edge, but again, I'm pointing to Governor Youngkin's new performance framework that we're going to be flipping the switch on this fall. And this will be crucial to measuring the success of our students or to counter any of me taking the worst case scenario here. If VDOE comes in and says, nope, sorry, you guys are still off track at X
That's right.
school, we can say, well, no, actually, we should be more on track or above. Because we have the data to prove it.
That's right. That's right. And I appreciate you saying that because these systems really allow us not only to monitor progress and performance in real time, but it also is a comprehensive repository for our intervention. So our staff are not having to put their hands in so many different pots. By finding a way to create a repository where all of that information is in one place, everybody who's invested in our student achievement can go to the same source. So I'm really excited about this, and fingers crossed we'll find something that looks like that.
So just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
Mrs. Knight, can you give us a little primer on how this is currently done?
I certainly can. Well, through spreadsheets. So when talking with our administrators, we have one system currently who, since I know we are under being recorded, I don't want to admonish any particular system, but we do have one, but our administrative feedback has not been positive about the system that we're currently using. So because some use it and others don't, they sent a request to the Office of Assessment and Accountability asking for a variety of data, some of which we don't have existing queries for, which means our team has to then create those, which takes additional time away from reporting. They may be in the middle of completing an MSC report or something else that the division needs. They have to table that to respond to school data that can come in at any time, at any moment. And then once that data is prepared, they send those reports back to schools, which then they spend time putting them together in what, again, they have defined as their own spreadsheets. Then they meet with their teams and they do their best to make some instructional decisions based on the data they have existing. So it is a time-consuming and inefficient process. So something like this really helps us to minimize all of this manual compilation, which can sometimes increase our ability to have errors. So we don't always know that the data we're looking at is even accurate.
So would it be fair to say that we're spending money to save money in the long run?
Without
in
a
time?
question, human capital, human capacity, the time spent using it, this will be money well spent.
Great, thank you.
Yes, of course.
Madam Chair?
Yep.
Ms. Knight?
Yes, sir.
So have we already identified what data management system we would like to use, or are we field testing different ones, or
Yes,
how's this
sir.
going?
We are in the process of, we meaning the instructional leadership team, we have already done our first round of exploratory conversations with a variety of vendors. I think we've probably entertained 5 or 6. I can't remember the exact number. Round 2 of this is we will be bringing a short list together based on those numbers, and we are inviting practitioners to the table. So we will have a composition of school leaders, teachers, instructional coaches who will come to the table and look at the products that we have considered on the short list, and we'll talk through practicality, user friendliness, efficiency, whether or not we can customize data dashboards that work for each of our individual schools. So we really want to have educator insight on how they believe this will function, and then that will help us to narrow our decision.
Great. So, and this will be linear across all of our schools, all of our facilities?
That's right. That's right.
Good.
Including the district level.
Yeah.
So we also get access to that data.
And then with 5 or 6 on the menu right now, right? How do we land at the number of 125? Because I'm sure everybody has a different price, right?
That's right.
Somebody might be a little bit higher, somebody might be a little bit lower. How do we land on 125?
Because the average from all of them, I asked for a preliminary quote just based on our size. And so they run preliminary numbers for you and say, well, a district of your size with your student count, here's about what it would cost per student. And they were all around the same neighborhood. I don't think there was one, maybe one, who was an outlier. So give and take a few different things where some have the ability to offer their pricing more in an a la carte fashion. Most came as a simple flat per pupil rate, plus you have to build in the cost for professional development. So that's a separate part of the invoices that we have a little bit more control over. Depends on how we roll out the professional development and what our ongoing reliance will be. So those are some of the places where we can manipulate the cost, but the average was about that amount. Some were more, so that's why the average is 125.
What do we foresee the training time for the staff being, and how will that look? Will that go into right before we roll out next school year?
Yeah.
As far as the continuing training we do.
Sure thing. Great question. In fact, so many of those vendors are eager to work with us. What they have offered is if we are able to make an early decision, meaning this semester prior to the start of the new fiscal year, they are willing to begin the onboarding process and training of our staff now if we're comfortable with that. I've had a conversation, at least a preliminary one, with one member of the finance team to talk about whether or not that's permitted here. How would we feel about something like that? Because again, this would be with next year's dollars after being approved. Would we be comfortable getting into an agreement with someone about a product we won't use until the next year? But apparently, according to all of them, this is common. So if we get to a place where we're ready to land on a decision and we're in agreement on that and we can afford it based on your approval, then we can actually get our staff trained sooner than later. If that's not the case and we're not comfortable with that, it would require that we move that training until the summer. And I'll just be frank, everything is in the summer, and that puts us in a bit of a pickle because our teachers only have so much time available to participate in summer training. Our new teachers tend to have the opportunity, I believe it is 2 weeks before the start of school.
Yeah.
And our returning teachers only have 1 week, and with everyone vying for the same audience, the amount of time they need for a quality professional learning experience is really restricted if we wait till the summer. And their mind is on opening doors, getting classrooms ready. It's really hard to continue to make these same types of errors. And these are the things I think we have the latitude to control differently at the central level. And I think when possible, we should do that.
I'm glad we're on the same page about that because
Yeah.
I'd rather get the training in now instead of trying to scramble
Yes,
or
sir.
kick something to the side.
That's right.
Or not give adequate training during that time period.
Yep.
So yeah, if this gets approved, I would be comfortable with you guys,
Yeah.
rolling it out fast.
I think they'd appreciate it. I know they're limited, and as testing season approaches, what they will have available to offer us will be limited. But what I can do with the vendor of choice is, because they're, again, very eager, they offer many modalities, so we can create a blended or a mixed model of training support. So being able to offer some virtual experiences and perhaps some in-person experiences to create some variation for our staff that, aligns with their scheduling needs.
One last question.
Yes,
The
ma'am.
125, is that's a one-time cost? Is there like a subscription per year cost
Yes.
after that?
Every year you would have to contribute to the system. What that would be at this time, I don't know, because it depends if you're going to do a 1-year contract versus a multi-year contract. So all of those nuances change the price. And sometimes, well, I won't say sometimes, all the time, if you go with a multi-year contract, the price usually will come down. I cannot guarantee that in this case because we haven't gotten that far in our discussion. However, there are pros and cons to going to multi-year contracts. The pro is the cost is always attractive. The con is if we don't like our product, outside of a breach, we tend to be locked into something that isn't working for us. So just trying to do some really good quality vetting before we signed up for a vendor for long term.
Madam Chair, if I may, you asked a really, really good question, and this goes to us being good stewards of our dollar and being transparent through this process. So let's talk through a scenario. So this does get built into our operating budget. Okay,
125
the 125,
year over year.
right?
Okay.
But next year, what we're going to do, which we've done the last 2 years, is now we're going to take a look at what Mrs. Knight said and said, how much is it going to continue, and say it's $50,000. We're now going to reduce that.
Okay.
So that's where that cost savings is, and that's a prime example. Because we could say it was 125 last year, let's leave it 125 this year. That's not being good stewards of our budget. Right? So we would reduce that number and then either utilize it somewhere else or have a conversation of what that's going to look like for the entire budget. So that this is a prime example of that cost savings we keep talking about. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So curriculum academies or academic excellence, this is really about our recognition through evidence-based research that it's not just teacher quality that matters. The quality of the materials and resources we use makes all the difference as well. I mean, we see that in every aspect of our lives. We buy quality vehicles because we want them to last longer. So we invest in a higher quality vehicle, not just one that's fancy. So I feel like our investment in quality curriculum, or what we call it down there, HQIMs, is a worthwhile investment. We want high caliber teachers, and we want high caliber teachers putting the best possible resources in front of our students. By investing in kind of develop our own program, it helps us to reduce the reliance on high and expensive materials that we are constantly outsourcing. We believe we have some really talented in-house folks through our coordinators of our current coordinators, and then we have eager teachers who would love to help us with either the revision or the design and development of new high-quality instructional materials. But to do this, we would not be leaving it by chance. So the cost that you see is a combination of the resources it would take for us to create these materials, but also the training to prepare our staff so that we are one band, one sound, speaking the same language in terms of how we develop a high quality, guaranteed viable curriculum. So the staff would engage in training from an outside vendor that would put us all on the same page. So that would be our curriculum writing academy. And once everyone learns how to design that using universal best practices, we wouldn't need to invest in that every year. It's train our current workforce and then teach or train the trainer model. And then we would then invite teachers to be a part of that curriculum development academy, and they could help us at least examine our current resources and try to improve or revise those. And as we prepare to develop new ones, we have a cohort of trained folks ready to do that work.
Madam Chair, so just a clarifying question, and please forgive me for putting you on the spot.
Yeah, okay.
Is there a good example that you could think of for where one of these local curriculum teams, like, what is one of the things that we might be paying them to do, or what is a gap that we want them to fill? The only reason I ask is because, right now, when I think of curriculum, it's very, very state driven, and it's very much kind of dictated to us in a lot of ways with SOLs. And I do this on a side for a couple of contractors, and so I'm just curious to know what we would want that to look like here.
Absolutely.
In
So the way I see curriculum is the state provides our standards. We're the ones who develop the curriculum resources that support the standards. So the state, that's where the limit stops. And of course, they provide some free resources that are available to our teachers, but teachers want the ability to augment those. To continue to support our academic program, we currently write our own lesson plans, not all of them, but we make some exemplar lesson plans available. We have some model lessons out there. They are housed on our curriculum website. And after listening to some of our teachers and even some of our school leaders, they'd like to see some changes. They'd like to see some enhancements. So what we expect to have is a repository of our own resources, in addition to whatever we can pull together from the state and other free sources, where our teachers can go on there, depending on their content area, and they have access to everything from their unit plans that really help to spell out the scope and sequence of the content, but as well as the anchored resources that align with those. So if you're teaching units, here are the additional resources that can help you bring that unit to life. And we like to create that bank for our teachers, which we currently have. We're working towards it, but with improved research about what high quality looks like, we want to aim to revise some of those resources that we have.
So that repository that we build would be built around rigor. Am I understanding correctly?
Absolutely.
That's great. That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Okay.
Standards align always, rigor number 2. And we've already had plenty of these conversations with the CACs or content area coordinators about the importance of how we define rigor. Rigor is not volume. Rigor is about the complexity of the content, and so we want to make certain that the rigorous content curriculum resources we build are aligned with the rigor of the state standard.
Great.
Yep.
I am relieved to see this change being made, because before I stepped into this seat, when I was kind of on the campaign trail, I heard from many young teachers who were brand new, fresh out of college, who were just big-eyed and scared because
Yep.
they didn't feel like they had a repository of lesson plans, and
That's
they
right.
didn't have that tribal knowledge and wisdom and experience
Mm-hmm.
to go off the cuff, if you will, in the classroom.
That's right.
So I see this as a huge plus. We're trying to attract our younger teachers
That's
here.
right.
This is a huge plus to bringing them here is, hey, we're here to support
That's
you
right.
with really high-quality lesson plans, high-quality resources. We haven't had this before. This is great.
It would be really exciting. And it's a springboard for those who are veterans or experienced teachers. And you're just scratching your head looking for another option. What's another angle for me to help students who haven't had access to it, who I just wasn't able to reach in that original lesson? Let me see, by starting with my district, what we have before I go online to look for someone else who's developed something. Let me start at home.
And it sounds like, it's not here on the slide, but I think I heard you say that a lot of our teachers who are more seasoned, who have many more years of wisdom under their belt can contribute to this
Mm-hmm. That's right.
repository.
That's what we're hoping,
Fantastic.
is to invite them to be a part of this work with us. And yeah, I think it'll be great.
The Trevor Johnsons and the Arthur Sperrys of the world are the two that come to mind from.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Love it.
Okay. All right, and then our last big initiative request is both a need and a want. Currently, we rely predominantly on Title II funding to support professional learning experiences for our teachers. The state expects us to have some skin in the game, and currently we do not. So they expect us to have a contribution from local funds before we continue to pull exclusively from the state pot. So this is in response to that, but obviously we wanted to determine what we would do with those funds, and here's what we would like it to look like. We currently use, again, a vendor, I won't say by name, but we currently use a vendor to provide, is our professional learning platform. We hope to expand some of the features for that existing platform to do some additional, to provide some additional resources to help with instructional walkthroughs and evaluative feedback for staff that would really help, we hope, be growth oriented. In addition to that, it would also help us to provide continuous ongoing professional learning throughout the year. And that's really our only leverage when we're looking to build great teachers. So we have a legion of them out there who are excited and eager to continue to grow, as are their administrators, and providing and contributing to professional learning experiences that allow them to do that is the best way to say I love you out loud, right? Because we want the best and the brightest here in our own camp here. And then professional learning communities, we've had several conversations already about the importance and the power of these. And what sets these apart from what all schools have right now, every school has teacher planning. That is not the same. Professional learning communities are about student learning. So teachers plan, and that's where they design lessons and think about what they're going to do next week or 2 weeks ahead. But professional learning communities are the opportunity to examine student work, evaluate student performance, and come together to determine why students haven't learned something and what we're going to do about it. So it's a collaborative planning conversation about how we get students to learn. That's separate from teacher planning. So these are very structured, organized opportunities, and we're excited about rolling these into the secondary program, starting with high school. And several of them have already been out there beginning the training, and then it'll be a gradual roll-in model. We're looking to perhaps roll in middle school next year.
I like this for two reasons. I think it's very forward-looking, and it goes with what I've discussed on my one-on-ones with Dr. Hummer. Is you mentioned the Title II funding. The Title II funding has been funding our professional learning for quite some time. That Title II funding may not exist.
Yep.
So not only will we be able to fund our own, and then also not have to lean on that pot of money from the state. I think this makes us stand on our own 2 feet. And also we can enable our teachers to perhaps participate in some training that may not have been allowed by the federal government because of federal funds.
That's right.
So I think that's a huge plus. Another thing too, I get a lot of comments from constituents. They're like, well, this professional learning, what is this? Are these, conferences that turn into vacations and so forth? So kind of to put it in perspective, in my profession, every 9 months I go back to our training center in Denver, Colorado for 3 days of intensive training on the latest and greatest in our airline and different emergency scenarios and things that have changed, because the aviation ecosystem is constantly changing. Education is no different. It is constantly changing. There's constantly new technologies being introduced. So that is our professional learning. I've been in that professional world for 18 years now, so every 9 months, I go back for 3 days of training, and this is no different. Coming out with a bachelor's degree in teaching does not give you all the tools in your toolbox you need for a full 20, 30, 40-year career. So definitely something that's needed.
Well said, well said. And while I couldn't agree with you more about, here's what I'll say about professional learning. It is everything, right? It is everywhere and it's everything. It's not going to be limited to conferences. While that may be some people's experience, I don't want conferences to have a bad rep. Conferences are no different than anything else. It's what you do with the information and what you do with your time when you spend it there. So the conferences are not the problem. It's the people who don't utilize and capitalize on the learning experience. So second to that, professional learning is everything from book studies to the resources that we buy for our teachers to investing in management systems to help them create these data dashboards. Professional learning is how to use an Excel spreadsheet efficiently so you're not spending 3 days trying to create something that you can learn how to do in minutes. So it is a broad umbrella of everything it takes to help expand capacity for our division. Okay.
Love it. Great.
I think that's all from me. Okay.
All right, so now we'll move to the operational side of the house. So we have some requests. We have visitors in the office. We have transportation represented. We have safety and security and technology and human resources. So we're going to dive right in. We want to start off with transportation. So as you can see on this slide, you can see our current bus statistics. The recommended bus lifespan is 15 years and or 200 to 250,000 miles. So you can see there statistically where our bus fleet is currently. So based upon this information, the budget proposal includes a request of $300,000 to have 2 additional replacement buses added to our operating fund. This would provide, if approved, this would provide recurring funding to replace 11 buses each year, which gets us closer to our target of 13.
Madam Chair? So if I understand this correctly, then it would take $600,000 to get us to where we need to be?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wait, let me just clarify. So the $300,000 is for 2 buses.
For 2 buses.
Right, and we need 2 more to make 13, so 600,000 would make 13 and get us there 1 year sooner.
1 year, true, yes.
Just
Yeah.
throwing
That's
that out there. It's not a trick, Mr. or Dr. Hummer. Promise. Next question will be, though.
Now, Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Shepherd, this is, when I came down to transportation, you and I had a great conversation. This is also to get us closer to staffing those buses at the 4th high school. That way it's not one big paycheck when that comes and hits the community. But this will also alleviate some of the old buses that we have, be more accommodating to students that we have currently in the student population, but it's also looking forward to that 4th high school, correct?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, when the 4th high school is built, I don't know exactly how many buses we're going to need. Obviously, it'll depend on the number of students that are there. But bus prices are not decreasing.
Right.
And as we're looking ahead to that, you know, say we had to purchase 30 buses to accommodate the new high school, obviously that's going to come with a significant price tag.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you looking toward the future on this, so thank you again to you and your staff for that. I
Absolutely.
appreciate the forethought.
All right.
I'm just going to ask the obvious question in the room. Since Mr. Bell started it, it's all his fault. Why can't we just go ahead and give you the money? But why can't we request the money to hit 13? They're not getting cheaper, and there's a bigger bill coming in 3 years when the school opens. I mean,
Valid point. Could we see those numbers baked in and see how that would?
Sure.
I mean, obviously, the simple math would be another 300,000 tacked onto the budget, but I would be curious to
was
take
gonna
that to
say
the whole
that.
board. I know. I'd be curious to get the whole board's input on that, too. Because you're right.
So, Madam Chair, if I could add to that, Dr. Erskine, and thank you for that question. So just a matter of process. So I presented the needs-based budget to you all, and now it's up to you about plus or minusing what you would like to see in it. So adding that on, if you all want to go with a different salary scale, you just let us know and we'll work that in. And then that is what will get sent downtown. And just again, a matter of process, we're having the joint meeting next week. Then next Thursday, we have a work session with the entire board. So that's where you guys will share what you would like to see in the budget. And then I will provide another presentation to you all on the 18th so that you'll know exactly what you are adopting before they send it downtown and work it into their numbers in regards to what they're approving or not. So just to give you a little timeline there to help with that. So yeah, if you guys want to add it on, that's
We'll add it.
totally up to you guys. Yeah.
Well, I think it's worth a discussion with the board because you gentlemen brought up a great point, and I recently saw, I shared this with Dr. Hummer and Mrs. Anderson, I recently saw one of our buses on the road, and it looked like something out of the movie Fury Road. And with the paint missing, I thought, oh, well, maybe that's one that we auctioned or sold, and I look, I'm like, no, there's kids on that bus. So we need these buses for those reasons, as well as the growth of the fourth high school. So I think I would like to see some numbers put together to present to the whole board, just doubling the buses, get that, and then also the option E on the pay scale.
We'll take
Just
care
for
of that.
discussion purposes.
Sounds
No
good.
decisions made here tonight, but just. for
Yes,
discussion
absolutely.
purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking my passivity into direct action.
Of course. They're not your electric buses, Daryl, but you know.
What?
We're not, they're not your electric buses.
Oh.
You'll get those after I get my uniform
But
dressed
does Mel
up.
Gibson come with them?
Maybe.
All right, so we'll move on to safety and security. If you recall, the current budget, thanks to the board, have a line item of $200,000 to purchase equipment that you see here on the slide. So this budget proposal for next year requests that that amount go up to $300,000, so an increase of $100,000 to continue that effort. Also included in the proposal is an upgrade for our safety and security coordinator position, to upgrade that to a director based upon the job responsibilities. And the value that you see there is both salaries as well as employer-paid benefits. So I know that Mr. Conlon is here if you have any questions about the equipment that's listed there.
Nope, I wish I could double the budget for you. We did increase this budget last year, Mr. Conlon, and what your team has done with that has been amazing. And we've had a lot of different security issues this year that you guys have handled magnificently. So thank you to you and your team for keeping us safe. I am really interested in that second bullet there because I have some intel that tells me that the individual who is in that position has been recruited by some counties that shall not be named, and I do not like losing to those counties. That will just not do. So 24.2 for salary and benefits seems very reasonable to keep that expertise here within our county.
You're here.
Yeah, I'm definitely good with the position dollar amount going up. Where are we with those intruder locks? Because I thought last year get us pretty far along.
So last year, we used our grant funding. We got 1,150 intruder locks. So all our classrooms are done. Unfortunately, we did not have the funding to do any of the offices. So our building, all the school offices, counselor offices, those are not done. So part of this would go towards that. And we have cameras on there. One of the things we are actually looking at right now is facial recognition cameras for our schools. As security needs change and the technology is really becoming better, we're definitely looking at that as another way to keep our students safe.
So just humor me. Facial recognition cameras, are they tied into the FBI database? Are they tied into local law enforcement? Like, or is it just in-house facial recognition?
It would be in-house. If, let's just say, we got a community alert from the sheriff's department of child predators.
So Pete the pervert shows up, but we can't identify him.
He shows up on the camera. We've got a picture of him. It's in our database.
Yeah.
We have no trespass people. They come up, you see him coming up the walkway. So stuff like that.
But we don't have him on there until he shows up.
No, anyone that we've no trespassed is already on there.
Okay.
And anything the sheriff's department or the government would share with us, we could upload into it.
So we could ask for that information, and that would get uploaded in there?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure we don't have Pete the pervert showing up. All right, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Conley.
So that moves us on to our technology request of $100,000. This would help support both enrollment growth as well as creating a refresh cycle for student devices, specifically at grades 6 and 9. And Mr. Grant is also in the audience if you have any questions. Back in 2020 to 2022, we had federal funding, which helped us replace a lot of our devices. So you can see the useful life cycle on a Chromebook there on the slide. So this funding would definitely support that effort.
Just out of curiosity, back in my time when we didn't have Chromebooks and we had the good old heavy, very, very heavy textbooks, about how often, and just anecdotally, and for the teachers and administrators in the room, about how often were those textbooks cycled out for a school with the funding and capabilities that we have?
Ms. Klein, I can
Yeah.
answer anecdotally.
Sure.
So it would really depend on the subject. Certain subjects, the textbook would have to change on a more regular basis, like for computer science and
Yeah.
business and things like that. But for math and English and maybe even civics, it wouldn't need to change nearly as much
Okay.
because civics might because of the sort of the day-to-day things that happen in the more
Yeah.
recent time, but basic U.S. history and math and English would not. It would really depend on the subject matter.
Okay.
And if I can add to that also, there are oftentimes, and I don't know yet if we have one, but there are adoption cycles that usually align with the standards being updated.
Okay,
And so
sure.
depending on how the division budgets funding for textbooks, if you have a healthy budget that has a revision cycle, you would adopt on those cycles. So 5 to 7 years is ideally, if it was a print text, but now publishers have gotten really creative and innovative, so most of the texts are digital. We, in many cases, will keep hard copies of text on hand for students who have more unique needs, or if we have students with unique circumstances who may be doing home-based learning, things like that, where we would send home physical copies of books, or students who have limited access technologically, who don't bring home devices because maybe they don't have a hotspot or access to technology. So we keep a few. When I say we, my experience, I'm not sure exactly I'm still working on that here, but in my experience, we would keep a few hard copies on hand, but the refresh cycle is ideally 5 to 7 years. But I've been in places where kids are looking at books a decade old,
Gotcha.
physical copies.
Excellent. Thank you.
One other thing about the Chromebooks, Madam Chair, I know that we touched on this the other night. Some of the literature that's coming out and some of the movements that we read about, how much good these are doing us. It's fascinating to me that during the COVID years, money is made available to make some of these initial purchases. But of course, now that spigot has dried up, we're on the hook for refreshing them. It just feels like a kind of a financial obligation with no end. And I don't know what the solution is right away to it, but I think it's worth looking at, especially in the next couple of years, whether we go in a different direction.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. And to your point, Mr. Erskine, or Dr. Erskine, that was one of the things that was brought up during COVID on this board. And then it's like, yeah, are we just, throwing money down a well at this point? Not taking anything away from Mr. Grant. But yeah, all those COVID dollars.
I would like to both of you all's point, I mean, we don't have that answer on this board at this time right now. However, I would like, not this budget cycle, but the next one, to start looking at alternatives to where we can cut this cost down. Because I am getting a little bit tired of depending on that spigot of money that came from COVID and paying for things that came from that spigot that we no longer have. So I know this is very vague. It's something we can flesh out throughout this coming year. I do think this is a need that we need to fulfill this year based on the pulse of our operation, but next year I think we need to look at ways we can
If I may, Madam Chair, so I think you guys are bringing up a really good point. It's more than just paying for a cycle of these Chromebooks. It's how, as Mrs. Knight was just mentioning, how it's linked to our instruction and curriculum. So if we do have a large number of our teachers, which I know they do, rely on these students utilizing this at home or for different activities, or when we have assessments, a lot of us, matter of fact, I don't know if I'm familiar with any assessments that aren't online. As Mrs. Knight mentioned, we do have students with unique needs where we can order paper pencil. So yes, I totally hear what you're saying in regards to these federal dollars we get with a lot of different aspects. We have to be very careful of that and look past when those dollars dry up. But when we build it into our day to day, we'll just have to make sure that we are willing to pivot in regards to what that looks like. One of the things we can look at is class sets in the classes that they have them in there, but we'll have to see how they utilize that in the home environment and what that looks like for us. But we can absolutely look into that, and then we'll just have more information and prepare that for the next budget cycle. Ms. Knight, I don't know if you want to add to that as well.
I would. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Hummer, for giving me a chance to chime into this a little bit. I certainly understand the reservation about the cost, but it would put us in it would likely put our students at a disadvantage to not have access. Most divisions are one-to-one, have one-to-one devices for children because the philosophy moving forward really is anytime, anywhere learning. And so if we are trying to meet our students' needs anytime, anywhere, having access to technology at their fingertips, while yes, it does come with its own set of challenges from gaggle alerts to everything else, I admit that, but having students have the ability to access, log on to their day-to-day class assignments should be the standard and not necessarily the exception. So I would hesitate to see those go away. Of course, that decision becomes yours to make, but it would put us at a disadvantage. And I'm not exactly sure how attractive a division would be when everyone around you has one-to-one devices and parents are house shopping and they find that their students only have access to a set of Chromebooks at home. Because when I found that our elementary school students don't take theirs home, that too was interesting. It's not necessarily an impediment because they are young, but it is not the standard in a lot of places. One-to-one devices, the children keep them all year long, around the clock.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are you sure? Okay. I just wanted to add that even absent of the COVID dollars, we had one-to-one devices before the pandemic. So we would have a refresh cycle anyway.
Anyway, okay, that gives me good clarity. Thank you.
So my question is, all right, if they're on this 5 to 6 year cycle, at year 6, does a note pop out of it and says self-destruct mode activated?
You can answer that.
Yeah.
I got you.
Our meetings are never boring.
The quick answer is no.
Okay.
We do our best, and we have fantastic building techs that can replace, they can screens, keyboards, everything. It's really up to the software. So if our software lasts 10 years and we can keep the hardware working, we will. So we can absolutely make it stretch beyond 6 years, and we usually do, but that is a good kind of buffer because sometimes you have some that get run over by a bus and then it's 0 years.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So when I got you up here, if we had to replace Chromebooks because one got ran over by a bus, a kid has apple juice in his backpack and it goes everywhere and it's kaput, typical wear and tear, and it's done. How many of them are we actually replacing a year, give or take? 1,000, 200?
So
100?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I can look that up in our software, but a total replace probably maybe 50 per building or something like that, and maybe not even that many, 25.
We can get you.
So we can get you that number though.
I appreciate it. And the reason I'm asking is if we could allocate funding for 50 of them a year, or let's go even more, 100 of them, unless we're paying $1,000 a piece, you know.
They're about 350.
About 350?
350 each, yeah.
Well, that definitely cuts us down from $100,000. if we replaced 100 of them, right?
And that would be per building. I
Per
mean,
building.
you know,
Oh.
I meant per building, it's like you, maybe 25,
25
30
per building?
Per building.
A year?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a guess.
Yeah, just
You
yeah.
know, we've got a
I'd
piece
like
of
to-
software that
Yeah, I'd like to
keeps
look
track
into
of that stuff. So-
Because, I mean, at year 6, unless that, you know, will self-destruct and 10.9.8 comes out, I would like to see us stretch that lifespan a little bit.
Yeah. And so, not to interrupt you,
No,
I
go ahead.
apologize. But the plan is, the reason we're looking at 6 and 9 is because they can go through, and once they're through, the kids take them from 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. Once they leave, they get another refresh of a brand-new Chromebook, but those will go down to the elementary school. And then the elementary schools tend to take more care of their
Yeah.
little kids, and they just tend to take better care of
Yeah,
them.
they don't go home.
Yeah, and that too. So we see the most damages in middle schools.
Yeah, I would imagine. I'd imagine.
Nobody's surprised on that.
So not to be the Debbie Downer here, but we are we're way past our stop time into Mr. Bell's personnel meeting. So just in the essence of fiduciary of time, if we could just continue on, and maybe if the board has other questions,
Yeah, we just get that
email.
answered.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I may, I know you want to rush things along. Can I just add one thing to you and the general public? So when their Chromebook is broken by a student, they're on the hook financially for that. For instance, my son broke his screen, not on purpose, by accident, and
On purpose.
I got a bill for it. I paid it, and he got a new screen. And my daughter lost her charger twice. I paid for it for the first time, and she paid for it the second time. And, you know, but, so I want the public to know that, you know, we're not just replacing students' Chromebooks with taxpayer dollars. They're coming out of the pocket of the student who owns that Chromebook to do that. And we send bills home to them as well. So
So it
anyway,
definitely shouldn't be a $100,000 ask.
well,
And I can second that, having had to pay for Chromebooks and chargers myself.
Okay.
anyway, thank you. Sorry.
So to Mrs. Klein's point, I know personnel, we've got staff here ready for the personnel committee, and we do have 2 more operational things to go through, as well as some data to share with you about the survey we did with our employees about the frequency of pay. But your questions are great, so we appreciate them. The next that we have on our list is the budget proposal requests an additional $100,000 transfer to support our school nutrition fund. And what that will do is help support our unpaid student meal balances. Current unpaid student meal balances is approaching $145,000. If this were approved, this would allow for a budget to cover $300,000 in unpaid meals. We're trying to be proactive, and Mrs. Curry is in the audience, set up a donation link on our My School Bucks where people can make donations. And to date, we've received $304 in donations to go towards that effort. So we greatly appreciate that. As well as we are communicating with our parents weekly about unpaid balances.
Madam Chair, if I may. I'm still an advocate for offering free breakfast, free lunches for the students. I know the need is even greater this year than it was last year. I can give you an example. My daughter was going to school and giving her lunch to one of her friends because they couldn't afford to pay for lunches. And so when we found out that my daughter wasn't eating her lunch, we're now packing a lunch extra for her friend. And, you know, I think there's a lot more of that. You know, again, we've talked about this, and I understand the majority of the board's opinion on it, but I would like us to not forget about it. I've asked to see what Bright Futures can shed on this as far as the number of students that might be in jeopardy of not able to get and afford lunches and breakfasts. I know there's bills that are going through the state, but they're dragging their feet purposefully so that they don't have to pay for these bills and they don't have to enact this legislation. So I'd like us to still consider the possibility of providing, if not free breakfasts and lunches, maybe free lunches for the students or free breakfasts for the students to take into consideration. Thank you.
And the next on our list is a human capital management system, which I would like to invite Mrs. Freakley to the podium.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Don't let that number scare you. That's a first-year number that would more than likely include an implementation fee, and then these systems run on a per employee per month basis, so that's a year one number. So I just want to say that straight away. I wanted to echo what Mrs. Knight said about data at the top of her portion of the presentation, going into why instruction needs a data management system. I echo that wholeheartedly. We want to be able to give real-time, accurate, quick data to you all as decision makers, to the rest of our staff, to leadership. And right now, we're operating in the same manner through a bunch of spreadsheets that are probably years and years and years old, that several people touch all the time. And so when we want data, it's a bit of a lift. But in order to bring that to you, we need to put it all in one place. And so this represents a human capital management system is just that. It is the complete life cycle of an employee. And so what we're talking about for this particular ask is certainly can certainly originate and live in HR, but honestly, it is to the benefit of all 3,001 staff members that we currently have and any prospective employees looking at FCPS to be a leader in recruiting and retention. So many of our counterparts in other districts use systems like this, and when you onboard, you get a fancy little link and it does all the work for you. The interest is in working smarter, not harder, in our ability to what we could consolidate, streamline, automate, and integrate. These are just some of the capabilities that a systems out there that I've researched have the potential to help us with. And so when we talk about things like keeping staffing levels at the central office, in line with expectations of the community and the board. Tools like this enable us to do that because the efficiency and the benefit is shared amongst everyone in the division. That these kind of heavy lifts can be done by technology, and we're not looking at additional staffing perhaps to help us with that. At least not yet. As we grow from what I call being like a schmedium division to a large division, we got to sort of face facts. I know, Ms. Klein, you referenced in another meeting recently, we're now 18 instead of 19. I don't anticipate us going backwards anytime soon. So this is really prep for the future and us trying to tackle some of those growing pains where we all have that spreadsheet that we love so dearly, but we know we need to put it in a place where it benefits everybody. So this is a quick snapshot. That was a really quick intro. If you stick around for Personnel Committee, you'll get a little bit more detail, but just wanted to point out, to the benefit of this group, a couple personnel committees ago, we brought forward what some costs look like in terms of one piece of functionality in the HR department, which was onboarding. And so I believe we gave the estimate at roughly 260 folks were onboarded, and that cost our division about $210. I'd have to check the tape. But if you're talking about those kind of numbers, when you're looking at a year $1 figure like that, and then you parcel out all of the additional capabilities that we could help streamline and trim, the cost savings and efficiency, this kind of system would pay for itself essentially, and what we could help in terms of labor efficiency. And I would also just say, and you're going to get this in personnel, but specific to human capital management, some of these larger divisions that we are moving towards becoming have dedicated staff members in some of the things that we're sharing functionality with right now. I've used examples of substitute management. That's a split job for us in our HR department. Licensure management, that's a split job for us. So again, going back to the point of if we're not at the place where adding people is a part of the discussion or the equation, tools can help us, but they really do also go hand in hand. We should be moving in a direction of using technology to leverage data quickly, to give you all those dashboards, to give Dr. Hummer dashboards, and to really pull everybody in together so that we're all looking at the same thing in the same place with that added efficiency. So I'm happy to entertain any other questions, but we might also get to that in personnel if you're sticking around. So
Just if I can just do a quick recap
Yeah.
and kind of draw some parallels really fast, I promise, Mr. Bell, and we'll get on to your meeting. So this system, I liken it to a CRM system, a customer relationship management system that a lot of other corporations use to manage their customers. They also use similar systems to manage their employees. This is an employee management tool.
Yeah.
It's my understanding we've been doing this via, again, various spreadsheets, pen and ink changes, and little segue. I pride myself from this dais of hacking off the extremists on both the right end of the political spectrum and the left end, so I'm going to say something that will hack off those extremes here. I welcome this $400,000 investment because we are producing products which are children, and we need to make sure that we use the data to do that well.
Right.
So I think this is a worthy investment. It's a big chunk of money. I understand that. That does not escape me, but it's something that we, as a third of $1 billion business that produces children ready for the workforce, we need something like this.
yes, thank you. I appreciate that.
And just a quick question, same ones I kind of asked Ms. Knight earlier. Do we have a system that we're already looking at?
So without violating any rules of finance, because I would never want to do that.
Right.
We're at the early stages of this. So whether we're talking about an existing product, which I have some early favorites, in doing my research. We want to be careful of that process, whether we're going to go through the RFP or we're going to tag onto an existing rider of a contract. But I'm working with
Yeah,
the boss over here to make sure I don't step out of line.
I'm just trying to get to where we got the $400,000. Is it,
So-
like we talked about with the 125 earlier?
Yes, absolutely. Like Miss Knight, you can call around and ask questions, which we've been doing, and we've socialized the idea of moving to a system like this, knowing that this is going to be a huge cultural shift for our staff, right? Moving to something like this where we're putting everything in it. We did have those primer conversations with staff to say, hey, are we able to keep the train on the tracks while integrating a new big system like this? And so trying to get that buy-in early, we had a lot of really good positive feedback. But in calling around and asking some questions, we were able to get a really high level. And this is, in my opinion, probably, I don't want to speak too far out of turn, but that's a high number in a worst case scenario kind of thing where we have room to potentially talk to some folks about, things we could work out, negotiating maybe. And so I just bring that as this is a starting point. And then, like I said, this is year one. So there's an implementation fee to this. And then that number does get smaller as we go through the years.
So my final question would be, how realistic is it to get this training done with the new training plus all the other summer stuff that we've got to do?
Yeah.
Plus onboarding.
That's a great question.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot for anybody to take on. Is it smarter to stagger this?
Right, absolutely. So this is going to be something that is going to take everybody to work towards. And again, like I said, us owning the process and being the starting point in HR. This has to be really strategically rolled out, and we're not in a huge hurry to slap something together. So working in conjunction with other rollouts, Ms. Knight's team, other things that are coming down the pike, we want to get this right. We want to do it right and roll it out as successfully as possible. So however long that takes, that might not be a great answer, but however long that takes, we're willing to
Madam Chair,
work towards
if I
that.
may. Mr. Atkins, thank you so much for bringing that up because we talk about that all the time. But one of the things that I want to share is when we presented this to our principals, and in regards to that, we had an overwhelming response of, we've needed this 20 years ago. So the excitement I think is overcoming the amount of work that this is going to do. And Mrs. Frakely and I had that conversation of, okay, this is going to be a huge lift, but it's a necessary lift, and it's a lift that is going to, in the end, what I like to call delayed gratification, is going to put us in a much better spot to continue to move us forward. But I agree, and it's definitely something we need to make sure that we manage and we keep a close eye on, but it is going to help us out in the long run, because right now, if we don't do this, what you just said is it's happening now because of the amount of work that HR is doing, instruction is doing, our teachers are doing, our administrators are not doing because they don't have that data. The grind is still going to get worse. So it's going to be, when do we do that? And right now we have to get this done now.
I just don't want us getting too much on our plate. We're spending too many plates, and then we're taking half measures.
No, we agree completely. We want to do what we need to do and do it right. So I thank you too for taking that in consideration, because staff is already really taxed. And so, this would be, like Dr. Hummer said, this would be a heavy lift, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But we do plan to be very communicative and strategic in how these things get implemented.
Having personal experience working with one of these, several types of these similar systems, they're pretty intuitive.
They are, and they're designed to be that way.
And I think we've got a smart bunch of folks
Absolutely.
here that will grasp these concepts
For sure.
quickly.
And that was what I was hoping to just add to a compelling argument that Katie has made for this system, is that from the strategic standpoint, at this early stage, we are placing everything that we believe is necessary out there, and then we will zoom out to determine the practicality of rolling each of these into phases. So thinking about the audience, who's impacted the most, and which of these strategic initiatives impact leaders, teachers, and so forth. Because this system has impact on everyone, but her team is more front-facing, so they would be the folks that are in phase one for something like this, less so of an impact on school level folks at phase one. Phase two might be the best time, so it wouldn't be a deterrent to buy the system. It's about when you strategically roll out those pieces and who gets impacted.
Absolutely. Anything else I can answer right now?
Good to go.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, so that includes the budget piece. Now we wanted to share some detail with you about the employee survey that we did on frequency of employee pay. So I believe that we shared this slide with you during the fall training session. So you know that we got a 57 response rate from our employees, and you can see there how that resulted. 43% said that they wanted to go twice a month. 35% said once a month, and then we had 22% who said that they had no preference either way. So before we get into the details of who said what, I just want to put a full disclosure out there that based upon the way our payroll processes exist today, to implement a bi-monthly payroll, it will take additional staff. We recently learned that other school divisions who currently have bi-monthly payroll, they staff at a ratio of one payroll employee for every 700 employees. So when you look at the size of our employee base, both full-time and part-time positions, we're over 3,000 employees that we're paying every month.
With three payroll people on staff,
with two analysts and a payroll supervisor, yes. So this is something that we want to get right. And it was intentional to put this information right after the human capital management ask, because not only does bi-monthly payroll affect our shop, it also affects the human resources shop. So we're in this together. And but now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Seibert so that she can walk you through the details of the survey.
I'm going to talk fast, so listen fast, okay?
Will do.
So on this slide, we have a breakout of the percentages by the employee groups, and you can see that our teachers were our largest group, but they are also our largest number of employees. And then the second group was the instructional assistants that answered our survey.
Just ready to move.
This slide is showing you it's kind of hard to read with all the numbers, but it's how they each different group answered, whether they wanted the twice a month, once a month, or no preference, just broken out by each individual group. And then we're going to show you a little easier. So the twice a month, These are the way that all of our employee groups answered for the twice a month. And then our once a month answers from all of our employees. And these are our no preference people, so we can keep it once a month or go twice a month for them. Daryl wants twice.
So the way that I see this, and I am paid in my regular job twice a month, so I can appreciate the benefits of having a twice a month pay. I do also appreciate the fact that you guys are on a 1 to 1,000 ratio roughly with us now, and I do appreciate the challenges that HR has. I do see, having worked with CRM type programs like Mrs. Frakely presented, or whatever the technical term was for the school district, but having dealt with those programs before, I feel that once we get that program in place, and once that's up and running and everyone is accustomed to it and we garner the synergies from that, I think we may be able, without any increase in cost, to bring the twice a month pay to our employees. So I'm not saying a no, I'm just saying a not now. I don't think right now we can justify the $165,000 extra right now. However, I do think that this is something that, with the technology improvements that we're making, that we could bring later.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So just a quick recap of what we discussed tonight. We've responded to questions that we received regarding the budget proposal, as well as we dug into the details related to additional staffing, our share of NREP, instructional department requests, operations request, school nutrition, as well as a human capital management request, and we discussed the results of the employee pay survey. So all these items are for your information only, and no actions required, and we will meet again next week to start to drill down on some decisions.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. That looks like the end of our agenda. How would the board like to proceed?
Madam Chair, I move that we adjourn our meeting.
Second.
All right. We have a motion. It's been seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned.